Shows a sharp drop in the number of babies born in the U.S. last year. An analysis reported in the New York Times.
California's birth rate continuing to drop.
The rate of people over 65 is increasing dramatically. That we have to have more babies or have people having more children.
Birth rates in the USA have dropped to their lowest annual levels in 3 decades, falling for nearly every group of women, and part of a longer decline that dates back to the Great Recession.
Baby boomers are retiring. I did my part, but you know, we need to have higher birth rates in this country.
Is it time to make America mate again? Last year, the U.S. population grew by only 0.7%, the lowest growth rate since the Great Depression.
My name's Michelle. Welcome back to my channel. Wow, this hat has an echo in it. Do you like my hat? I mean, do I pull it off? Because I feel like I need to start finding a way to work it. Anyways, if it sounds like I'm shouting in this video, it is because I guess we, as people who are not handmaids yet, have not realized that this has a echo. Like, let me tell you. Today's video is me really just diving into, could this really happen? Like, could the Handmaid's Tale really come to life? Is this a possibility? Are we already on our way there? Would it be that shocking that we would reach this point? You know what? Before a few years ago, I would have said yes, and now I'm not so sure, so let's dive into it. When you first start watching The Handmaid's Tale, it doesn't seem like something that would be plausible. To me, it didn't really start to like feel like, oh shit, until they started showing us the kind of flashbacks. And it's really in the flashbacks that I feel like it really kind of starts to click. This didn't just all happen one day. The government just didn't come take over one day and be like, you're gonna be a handmaid, you're gonna be this, you know, women are not gonna have any more rights. It happened in like little fucked up steps. As time was going by, little things were happening and you see people being like, wow, that's fucked up. That's really fucked up. How could they do that? How could this happen? But they stay, they don't fight it. Maybe they just didn't know how, or maybe they just don't think it could get much worse. And then you see as time goes on and more of this stuff starts to happen, it eventually becomes too late. You see multiple of the characters try to make a run for it, try to escape this world, and you see that it's, by the time enough shit has happened, enough fucked up shit that they never thought would happen actually starts to happen, that they actually are like, okay, we need to leave, it's too late. Nobody can get out. And like, that's scary to me because lately, I don't even think we need to explain this, but lately there's been a couple of fucked up shit happening and everybody sits around like, wow, I didn't think I'd ever see that. This is 2018. Is this really happening? Is this really a thing? And it's just little shit that keeps going. And I think that's where at least it clicked with me. It wasn't like people just came and took over and how did they do that? It really was done in steps, and I think that's a key point here to take away. This was done in little tiny like building blocks, building up to the big shebang. In The Handmaid's Tale, one of the big things they link to infertility is pollution, and this is a red flag to me because there actually is a link between pollution and infertility, and that's scary because that's what they use, and you constantly see them bring up things like women were getting abortions, women were having sex before marriage, women were using birth control, and like obviously we haven't reached that point that Gilead reaches in the series, but in the beginning it feels like we're there almost. Like, no, our birth rates haven't dropped that much, but our birth rates have dropped. And you have seen people in, you know, the media begin to say things like that. And that is like how this all started. And it makes me think, if the birth rates kept dropping and got to the drastic point on which they are in Gilead, would our country just have a full crazy Christian takeover and result in something similar to this? I mean, we don't exactly have the best track record of keeping our church out of our state. I mean, we say there's a separation of church and state, but like, check what's happening in the world right now and what politicians use. They constantly use the Bible, and in the show they constantly use the Bible to control women. We already do that. We do that in the US, and in other parts of the world they do it to the hardcore extent that Gilead is doing it. In The Handmaid's Tale, if you haven't seen it, which if you haven't seen it, I don't know why you're watching this, you should go check it out though, it's a really good show, kind of terrifying. The handmaids are women who are forced to be raped by powerful men, carry their baby to term, and then hand the baby over to the wife. Now this seems like a crazy concept that could just never happen in real life, but it's already happening. This is an issue in India. In India right now, women are being trafficked, and it's not exactly sex, it is sex trafficking because they're being raped, but the bigger picture behind them being trafficked is to be forced surrogates to men. They are taken to doctors, they are given injections to help them get pregnant, they are raped by the men, and then their baby is taken. Like, this is actually going on in the world. So if you're thinking this is just the craziest part of this whole thing, there's parts of the world where it's actually already happening. In The Handmaid's Tale, women's bodies are controlled by men. And that's very much the case here in 2018. I mean, look at all the things old white men are currently trying to do to take away our rights to our own bodies. We are constantly fighting in 2018 to keep our abortion rights. In 2016, although it was vetoed, the House of Representatives did pass a law making abortion illegal and making it a criminal offense to which women would go to jail for. Now, let me remind you, this was just 2 years ago, and this was made a law. It was vetoed, but it was made a law. People thought that they should punish women for having control over their own bodies. So this whole like men are in charge aspect that's happening in Gilead, yeah, it's to a higher extent, and it's not that bad in the US, but it's still there, and it's that bad in other parts of the world. Like, let's not forget that there are actual parts of the world where things like this are happening. In the show, religious people take over and like use the Bible to justify all this horrible behavior. And we see that all the time in real life. Christians and Bible people use the Bible to argue against abortion, to argue against gay rights, to argue against contraceptives, to argue against sex before marriage, to fight other religions. Like, look at all the tension some of these religious groups have towards people who just think a little differently, who just interpret things a little differently. Look at all the wars we go to over religion. There are a large majority of people who are batshit religious crazy in our country. And in other parts of the world, it's even worse because a larger number of those people exist. So what if this number in our country of crazy religious people keeps growing? Will there be a panic if the birth rates drop significantly to where we reach this point, to where more people become believers, to where more people are pushing this agenda? I mean, I don't know about you, but I could tell if like people stopped having babies. I could totally see a group of people being like, God is punishing you all. You all used the birth control and you all had all the sex. I'm losing my handmaid's hat. And what did you think was going to happen? You're being punished. Come on, am I the only one that could actually see that as reality? Like, as a group of people convincing other people that this is punishment, that we're now living in hell? Like, it's kind of scary because I can really see it. Like, I can really see it. This handmaid's hat, like, holy shit, these bitches sweat all fucking day, let me tell you. Oh my god. In one of the episodes, they take of Warren's eye. Now, this might not be a common practice in our country, but this is the common practice in other countries. It is happening. This kind of thing is happening. People quote the Bible and then they take people's eyes as a form of punishment. This is not, it's not super common, but it's not happening. So again, we have another thing that people see on the show and they're like, holy shit, that's batshit crazy, and you're like, holy shit, that's actually happening in real life. Like, wake up. This is not fan fiction. Look at the divide we put into women in this show, where we divide women up by different classes, by how much they're worth. We do this to women in society all the time. Like, you're labeled a whore, you're labeled a good woman, like, you slept with too many people, so you're not valued as much. Like, this is something we really do. So is it so out of the realm of possibility that if we started to not be able to have babies, that people would blame the women they deem to not be very noble women? I'm not so sure. Especially the fact that in the show they say that the fertility issue is more than likely a man's problem. It's more than likely actually the men are infertile, but they're blaming it on the women. We do that in our society already. We blame everything on the women. So if we stopped being able to have babies, who do you really think they would blame? Like, do you really think they would ever blame the men? even if it was the men's fault? Or do you think they would blame us? And then do you think that they would punish us? Now, if you're watching this and you're not convinced, which I'm not trying to like completely like convince you like this is gonna happen. This is just a video on could this happen? Is this a possibility? Could we one day reach this point? Is this completely just out of the question we could ever get here? The scariest part for me about this whole thing is the writer of the book which the show is based off, the person that wrote The Handmaid's Tale, said this: everything that happens in The Handmaid's Tale, every single thing, has happened or is currently happening somewhere in this world. So keep in mind that when you're watching this show, no matter what you see that you think is just the craziest, most out there, this would never happen in real life, it's happening somewhere. Maybe not here, but it's happening. And make that be an eye-opener for you. We cannot sit by until our rights are taken. Like, that's what the big thing is in this. Like, a bunch of people don't think that their rights can ever be taken from them. So they just sit there and they sit there and they sit there. Our rights can be taken at any time. And I think this is one of the biggest messages the show is trying to get out there. Don't sit by, don't sit silent. You are in charge of making sure that you have the rights you deserve. That is our responsibility. So I hope you enjoyed this video. You know, I just thought it would be fun to kind of dive into it, give my take on it, and give my take on it if I think this is possible. And honestly, I don't think this is impossible. I don't think we're gonna see it happen. I don't think it's likely, but do I think it's impossible? I don't. If you liked this video, please give me a thumbs up and please subscribe to my channel if you are not already. I will have all my social media linked below. And until next time, under his eye, everyone.